Hyundai needs to get serious about Genesis, and their dealerships need to get on board with this being a standalone brand. Welcome back to All Cars, y'all. I am John, and this is a rant that I have been thinking about for a long time, a couple of years now, as a matter of fact, but it was inspired by an article on Automotive News where a dealership says they need to have standalone dealers. And I completely agree, because right now, Genesis is stuck kind of in a chicken the egg situation. You need to have standalone dealers, but you also need to have the sales that justify the expense of standalone dealers. And Hyundai is actually hemmed in by their decisions, which were very intelligent at the beginning, but have actually been working against them. So if we roll back to the 2000s, Hyundai envisioned a premier car, a luxury car that was BMW 5 Series benchmarked. The 5 Series for a 3 Series price. A very compelling proposition, as a matter of fact. And they came out with the Genesis, and instead of rolling it out into another brand, they sold it as the top-level Hyundai. Now, of course, they took that, a lot of it, and turned it into the Genesis Coupe, and then, of course, they turned in the Equus later on. And I've had a chance to drive several of these. I did a whole review of the Coupe, as a matter of fact. And the Genesis was a really good attempt, right? It actually is a really nice car, but it depends on which way you come from, where you come from to how you look at it. If you step out of a Mercedes and a BMW into a Genesis, it's a little chintzy, right? The leather's a little thick, a little rough, the dash isn't quite as nice, nothing's quite as refined as you get in the Germans. But if you come from an Accord and a Camry, a Malibu, a Fusion, or something, or even a Buick, the Genesis is really nice. And they are really nice. And I know several people on this channel in videos I've done before talking about Genesis, people come out and very aggressively defend Genesis for being very good performers and being kind of a value, and not really comparing with a lot of what, say, Lexus or Acura is actually offering out there. Well, the problem is that as Genesis sold, and it sold acceptably well, in the mid-2010s, they wanted to roll Genesis into its own brand. And since then, Hyundai has done the investment to really build their portfolio. They've got the G70, the G80, the G90, they've got the sport utilities, they're moving into electric, they've really expanded the portfolio. But sales haven't necessarily really followed. Consider that in 2021, they sold less cars, in spite of, I think it was 200% growth over the previous year, which admittedly was down due to COVID. They sold less 6 years in than Lexus sold their second year on the market. So while they're getting about 50,000 sales, that's it. And they're not having this explosive growth. Now, I do think that Hyundai has got a long time horizon. I think they are in it for the long haul. But one of the things that's holding it back is the dealership experience. Now, when Hyundai launched Genesis as a car, they told the dealers apparently that they would always be able to sell Genesises. But what Hyundai wants to do, and they've kicked off programs to incentivize dealers to move to standalone stores. And dealers, because they act like a cartel, have responded for about 5 years now with lawsuits against Hyundai fighting against the requirement. So a few dealers have spoken out and said they need to have a dealership experience equivalent to what BMW and Mercedes and Audi and Lexus and everybody else offers. And there's this one quote that was so impactful, I actually decided to do this video, because he actually says people who are looking for that premium level experience, that luxury experience, aren't comfortable being sold a Genesis out the side door of a Hyundai dealer. And actually, J.D. Power backs these numbers up. J.D. Power's initial quality for Genesis is actually very high. That doesn't mean anything about the durability, longevity, the reliability of the cars, but initial quality is quite high. But their sales and their service rankings are at or near the bottom, reflecting the dealerships they're actually being sold at. But the dealers are fighting back against it. And Hyundai is a little handcuffed, not being able to make the dealers go build a standalone store. And I think this is a terrible shame. It reinforces my belief of what the dealers are, how the stranglehold they have on the market and not really doing what's right for the customer. But also it's hard to fault them when you've got 50,000 sales nationwide. But Hyundai launched this program, I think 5 years ago, to encourage dealers to build these standalone stores. And do you know how many there are in the United States? 4 total. One of them's in South Carolina in Greer, which is not exactly a metropolis like New York or LA. So Hyundai needs to get this under control. And I think this kind of lawsuit-driven fight back against an investment to create a small boutique luxury experience for Genesis buyers, it's not only holding back the brand, but it's part of the reason you see VW and Ford, for example, when they're launching new EVs, thinking about it as a separate company, not bound by existing dealership agreements. The dealers are shooting themselves in the foot. As I said in a video previously, the dealership experience is ripe for someone to come in and disrupt it. And it's idiotic to me that they're trying to build a brand and fighting against the parent company because they don't want to make the investment in the actual facilities and the experience. They just want to sell it out of the side door of a Hyundai dealership. I don't know what Hyundai's options really are here, but they've got to get this under control because right now, again, chicken and the egg. If you had more sales, you could make the investment in the facilities, but if you had the facilities, you'd probably improve the sales and the service and the experience and more directly compete with those luxury brands you're trying to capture. Because they've got a whole variety of cars that are all pretty darn well reviewed and really nice. But who wants to go to a Hyundai dealer for it? Let me know your thoughts below, guys. Thanks.